Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about balancing a larger rotor. This is a rotor for my Healy, and it is about as big as you can get and still really be considered a micro turbine, I think, in my opinion. You get varying degrees of opinions about that. This is generally how I start. And now this rotor is already basically, it's pretty balanced. It needs a little bit of work, and I'm going to show you guys how I get there. But first, for the sake of dramatization, I'm going to show some of the things that you look for. To begin with, if it is unbalanced, it's always going to drift to the heaviest blade down. And sometimes it's not just the blade. Sometimes it is, one blade is considerably lighter than the others, and you have to overcome that. Okay, that time it wasn't as good of an example, but there we go. Maybe. You know what? There we go. Sometimes it's two blades that are much heavier than the third, or however many blades you're dealing with. Should be three, but more often than not. Okay, so that's something that I had with this particular rotor, is that this blade was considerably lighter than these two. I had to add quite a bit of weight to the hub just to get that to balance out. So whenever you have one that's just a little bit heavier, I've got my extra weight really close to the hub, so it's going to be really hard to see exactly. It's not just going to pull itself, but you can give the rotor a little bit of a turn and wait for it to come to a stop. Watch it make a liar of me. And you can see your heavy side ended up down. Now let's do it one more time. Whenever that happens, you might see on my hub I've got A, B, and C. I've got my blades labeled. That way I can see which one stopped on the bottom, which one was the heavy side. It's not quite heavy enough to draw it back. That's one of the issues that you'll see with heavier rotors, with bigger rotors. It is heavier. It can withstand a much greater imbalance in weight. But let's, whenever I'm doing this side of things, I usually do this little spin test a dozen times, and we'll see, where, I take note of where the blades always stop. Let's make it a little bit more dramatic. I'm going to move it just a little bit further out. That clamp really doesn't weigh that much, so it's not as dramatic an effect on the weight of the rotor. As you can see here, it's far enough out that it's actually causing it to rotate backwards. I'm going to try to get it where it's not enough to make it pull. There we go. Now, basically this part of the test is spin it a few times. See which blades come down. If you have one particular blade that's always on the bottom, or if you have a pair of blades that's always on the bottom, that side's the heavy side. And you're going to have to add some weight to whatever is on top. That's my first step, is I make sure that this doesn't have any serious imbalance. Another thing that I do is, if you've got the room to do it, I'll just spin it up to about 100 RPM, maybe 120 RPM by hand. And I'll listen to stuff rattling on the bench, or I'll look for it, wobbling or shaking. Like before I started balancing this out, I could, like my first time, a couple of years ago, or last year, whenever I got these blades, I could run this out like this, and it would be rattling everything on my bench, because, like I said, one of the blades was considerably lighter than the other two. So those are two things that I do there, just to see if there is a really considerable imbalance. The next step that I do is real similar to whenever I'm doing a lighter set. I'll set that up right quick and you guys can see that. Okay, so whenever I'm balancing it this way, it's real similar to the smaller rotors. I use this little mower blade balancing jig. And something that I want to point out, and other people have pointed out with the last one, I should have mentioned this. It is easier if you can turn it over to where it's upside down to put more weight beneath the point. If all your weight's above the point, it's always going to tilt. And I should have mentioned that, probably not in my camera view at all. I should have mentioned that, but didn't think about it. Try to put your weight below the point, and it's easier to do whenever we're doing this. Okay, getting this set up can be just a little bit of a challenge, but it works out. And we are going to do it with the blades down. Oops, should have done this in advance. On the level over there. Okay, get you guys over here where you can see this. Alright, so I point this down towards each blade. Basically, this is saying that blade's a little bit low. Where are my washers? Washers is how we'll fix that. Maybe. That's really close enough that I'm not too worried about it. Actually, let's take that back off. Check all your blades before you start preparing to make changes. Like, that blade is actually really good. And that blade is a little light. I don't know if I've got enough room where I can throw some weight on it. Maybe I do. If I add some washers to that one, Come on, cooperate with me. You could still use a little. Let's see what else we can add. No, I don't really have anything else handy. It's gotta be washers. So it looks like I need one more big nut. Oh, I don't have one more big nut. Actually, it looks like it didn't make any change at all. No, my thing was. Also, check the way you're mounted and make sure that you're staying centered. I wasn't quite centered. And that's actually in line. This is where it can be kind of complicated. And honestly, that's close enough to level that I'm gonna leave it there. But let's again, we're gonna do this for the sake of demonstration. And put that weight out there, just because it'll be pretty dramatic. And you can see how much that changes it. And the way we would do that, I try to add weight to the hub, and I actually had somebody mention adding paint to the blades to balance them out. I really like that idea. I'm going to try that the next time around. But depending on your turbine and how much weight you can add, we just try to get it as close as we can to center. Now, this is something that I really want to stress with this, is that if you go at this trying to get the perfect balance and trying to get every blade absolutely perfect, that level in between the lines on every one, you will either be very lucky or you'll go crazy. It is very, very difficult to get it perfect, but you can usually get it pretty close. So that's how I do these. Now, there's like, you can get like special arbors that will center these to where you can, kind of keep it, a little bit easy. It makes it a little bit easier to balance. With smaller rotors, you can do the same thing like this, but you do need to be a little bit more precise. I feel you need to be a little bit more precise, and that makes those tapered arbors a little bit handier. But don't drive yourself nuts. After you get it balanced, you can run the turbine with a drill. Just make sure you have plenty of room around you. Lock your turbine down in something and drive it with the drill. You can spin it just really as fast as you can with your hands. And if it doesn't seem like it's vibrating or pulling apart, then it's probably okay. Don't overthink it. Don't hurt yourself trying to do it. Even this, if I get this up there and it starts shaking pretty bad, I'm just going to bring it back down, and we'll try again. But don't try to chase that perfection, as it's not as important as some people think it is, and it really will drive you nuts. So, if you found this at all useful, helpful, I'm going to try to do a better video kind of covering all of this this fall whenever I have to bring everything down inevitably again. And I might actually be getting a larger rotor that will need to be balanced. So I'll try to rehash some of this stuff and try to present it in a little bit better way. But that's that for now. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful day.